The Grand Arena station hung in the void like a jeweled crown, its transparent dome reflecting the light of 3 nearby stars. Inside the main reception hall, 200 delegates from across the Galactic Council gathered for what was supposed to be a celebration of peace. Crystal towers rose from the polished floor, each one displaying holographic treaties and trade agreements that had taken decades to negotiate. Dr. Amy Foster stood near the refreshment station, feeling distinctly out of place. She was the only human in the room, and at 32 years old, she represented a species that had barely learned to cross their own solar system 3 decades ago. Her simple gray uniform contrasted sharply with the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor worn by the other delegates. "The Terran representative seems uncomfortable," a voice clicked beside her. Amy turned to see a Quilxian diplomat, its 3 eye stalks rotating independently to observe her. "Just taking it all in," Amy replied with a polite smile. "This is my first council event." "Ah yes, your species is quite new to galactic affairs." The Quilxian's translator made its tone sound pleasant, though Amy couldn't tell if that was accurate. "You should feel honored. Ambassador Tal Maven rarely allows outsiders to view his prized possession." Amy followed the diplomat's gesture toward the center of the hall. There, inside a containment field that shimmered like heat waves, stood the largest creature Amy had ever seen. The Krath warbeast was nearly 4 meters tall at the shoulder, its body covered in overlapping armor plates that gleamed like polished obsidian. 6 powerful legs ended in claws that could probably slice through steel. Its head was angular and predatory, with rows of crystalline teeth visible behind its closed jaws. "It's beautiful," Amy whispered, her scientific training kicking in immediately. She noted the creature's breathing pattern, the slight twitch of its ear-like sensory organs, the way it shifted its weight from side to side. "Beautiful and deadly," the Quilxian corrected. "That beast is worth more than 3 planetary systems. It is the last breeding male of its kind. Ambassador Tal Maven has spent his entire fortune maintaining its bloodline." Amy watched as the ambassador himself approached the containment field. Tal Maven was a Krath, shorter than his beast but sharing the same armored appearance. He carried himself with obvious pride as other delegates gathered around to admire his creature. "The containment field is perfectly safe," Tal Maven announced, his voice booming through the hall's translation system. "My people have kept these magnificent animals for over 10,000 years. This one, which I call Sovereign, represents the pinnacle of our breeding programs." Amy stepped closer, fascinated. She had studied dozens of alien species since joining Earth's xenobiology program, but nothing quite like this. The creature's eyes were intelligent, tracking movement around the room with careful attention. Its nostrils flared regularly, taking in scents despite the containment field. Then she noticed something that made her freeze. The beast's breathing pattern wasn't quite right. There was a slight hitch every 4th or 5th breath. Its sensory organs kept twitching toward the left side of the hall, where the station's environmental systems hummed behind decorative panels. "Ambassador," Amy called out, taking a step forward. "I think your animal might be experiencing some distress." The explosion cut her off. Not a real explosion, but the sound of the containment field shorting out in a cascade of sparks and energy discharge. Several delegates screamed and backed away as the field flickered and died. Sovereign stood frozen for exactly 2 seconds, as if it couldn't believe its good fortune. Then it moved. Amy had studied predators her entire life. She had worked with tigers, bears, and crocodiles back on Earth. She thought she understood what speed and power looked like. But watching Sovereign launch itself across the reception hall redefined everything she knew about animal movement. The beast cleared the 20-meter distance to the nearest exit in 3 bounds. Its claws tore gouges in the polished floor. Delegates scattered in every direction, some teleporting away in flashes of light, others simply running in panic. "Seal the exits," Tal Maven roared, but it was too late. Sovereign crashed through the decorative doors as if they were paper, its armored hide protecting it from the twisted metal. Station alarms began wailing immediately. Red emergency lights strobed across the hall. Through the chaos, Amy heard the rapid-fire clicking of the station's security channel as guards mobilized throughout the facility. "All delegates to safe zones immediately," a calm automated voice announced. "Hostile creature loose on levels 7 through 9. Security teams deploying with lethal countermeasures." "No." Tal Maven rushed toward the shattered doorway. "You cannot kill Sovereign. He is irreplaceable. Worth more than this entire station." A Quilxian security officer blocked his path. "Ambassador, the safety of 2,000 station residents takes priority over any animal, regardless of value." Amy's mind raced as she processed what she had just witnessed. The beast hadn't attacked anyone. It had simply run. And that breathing pattern she had noticed, combined with the way it kept looking toward the environmental systems, suggested something important. "It's sick," she said aloud, though no one was listening. The hall had erupted into shouting matches between security personnel and various ambassadors, all trying to coordinate a response. Amy pulled out her portable scanner, a simple device Earth had developed for analyzing alien biochemistry. She accessed the station's sensor logs, searching for anything unusual. There, in the environmental data, she found it. A spike in metallic particulates near the containment field's location. The station's air filtration system had malfunctioned slightly, releasing trace amounts of processed metals into the atmosphere. She cross-referenced with her xenobiology database. Krath warbeasts were evolved on a world with minimal heavy metals. Their biology couldn't process certain compounds that other species found harmless. If Sovereign had been breathing those particulates for hours, it would be experiencing something similar to heavy metal poisoning. The creature wasn't escaping. It was trying to find clean air. "I can get it back," Amy announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. The hall went quiet. Every eye turned toward her. Tal Maven pushed past the security officer. "You? A human? Your species barely understands its own animals, let alone ours." "That's exactly why I can help," Amy said, meeting his gaze steadily. "Your security teams are thinking like soldiers. They want to corner it and fight it. But I'm a xenobiologist. I understand animal behavior. And I think your beast is sick, not aggressive." "Impossible," Tal Maven snapped. "I monitor Sovereign's health constantly." "Then why did it run toward the maintenance tunnels instead of attacking anyone?" Amy challenged. "And why was it showing respiratory distress before the containment field failed?" A heavy silence fell over the room. Through the broken doorway, they could hear the distant sound of security teams moving through the corridors, their weapons charging. The Quilxian security officer studied Amy with all three eye stalks. "Can you retrieve it without harm to the creature or station personnel?" Amy thought about the dangerous animals she had worked with back on Earth. The injured bear that had wandered into a shopping center. The tiger that had escaped from a private collector. Every situation where people wanted to shoot first and ask questions later. "I can try," she said simply. "But I need full access to the maintenance levels, and I need your security teams to hold their fire." Tal Maven's armor plates shifted, a sign of agitation in his species. "If you fail, if Sovereign is killed because of your arrogance." "If I don't try, your security teams will kill it in the next 10 minutes, Amy interrupted. "You said it yourself. He's irreplaceable." The ambassador stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. Amy grabbed her scanner and a medical kit from the emergency station near the wall. As she headed toward the shattered doorway, she heard the Quilxian diplomat mutter, "Either very brave or very foolish, these humans." Amy didn't disagree with either assessment. The maintenance tunnels of Grand Arena Station were never meant for diplomats. Amy had to duck through the access hatch, her boots clanging on metal grating as she dropped into a corridor barely 2 meters high. Emergency lighting cast everything in shades of amber and shadow. The air smelled like oil and ozone. She pulled out her scanner and activated its tracking mode. The device wasn't designed for hunting escaped animals, but it could detect biological markers in the air. Skin cells, breath vapor, anything that left a trace. The screen flickered and displayed a faint trail leading deeper into the tunnel system. "Dr. Foster, this is station security." A voice crackled through her communicator. "We have teams positioned at all major access points. The creature cannot escape the maintenance sector." "Good," Amy replied, moving forward carefully. "But remind your teams not to engage. If they corner it, it will fight. Right now it's just running." "Acknowledged." "But doctor, our scans show the creature heading toward the lower industrial levels. If it reaches the reactor cooling systems, we'll have no choice but to use lethal force." Amy's stomach tightened. She picked up her pace, following the trail of claw marks gouged into the metal flooring. The marks were deep, frantic. This wasn't the careful movement of a predator stalking prey. This was panic. She passed through a junction where 3 tunnels met. Her scanner showed the trail continuing straight ahead, but something made her pause. On the wall to her left, about shoulder height, there was a dark smear. Amy touched it carefully, then brought her fingers to her nose. The smell was organic, slightly acidic. She checked her scanner's analysis. Blood. And not just any blood. The chemical composition matched what little data existed on Krath warbeasts. But there was something else mixed in, something that made Amy's heart sink. Heavy metal compounds. Chromium, nickel, traces of lead. All substances that would be toxic to a creature from a low-metal world. "It's poisoned," she whispered. Her mind flashed back to a case from 5 years ago back on Earth. A jaguar that had escaped from a wealthy collector's private zoo. Everyone thought it was hunting, looking for prey. But Amy had found it 3 days later, hiding in a drainage pipe, dying from an infected wound. The animal hadn't been aggressive. It had been terrified and in pain. She moved faster now, following the blood trail. Every 50 meters or so, there was another smear where Sovereign had brushed against the walls. The spacing told her the creature was slowing down, its movements becoming less controlled. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber filled with humming machinery. Atmospheric processors, according to the labels on the units. Giant cylinders that filtered and recycled the station's air. And there, on the far side of the chamber, was Sovereign. The war beast had collapsed against one of the processors, its massive body heaving with labored breaths. Even from across the chamber, Amy could see the problem. The creature's obsidian armor plates, which should have been gleaming and smooth, were discolored along its left flank. Dark patches spread across the surface like oil stains. And where the armor met flesh at the joints, there was swelling. Infection. Amy stayed perfectly still, making herself small and non-threatening. She had learned long ago that sudden movements were what triggered attacks. Predators didn't waste energy on threats that didn't challenge them. Sovereign's head turned slightly, one eye fixing on her. The eye was cloudy, not the clear crystalline she had seen in the reception hall. The creature made a sound, low and rumbling, that Amy felt in her chest more than heard. It wasn't a roar or a growl. It was something else. Something that reminded her of the sounds injured animals made when they wanted to be left alone. "I know," Amy said softly, keeping her voice calm and even. "I know you feel terrible. I'm not here to hurt you." She took one careful step forward, then another. Her scanner was picking up more data now. The creature's body temperature was elevated by 3 degrees. Its respiratory rate was 40% above normal. And the infection markers in its blood were getting worse. The station's metal, she realized. When the containment field had malfunctioned, it must have released a surge of ionized particles. Those particles had been processed from the station's hull, which was made from a dozen different alloys. To most species those particles were harmless. But to a Krath warbeast, evolved on a world where heavy metals were rare, they were poison. Sovereign had breathed them in for hours. The particles had entered its bloodstream through its lungs, then accumulated in its tissues. And now, the creature's immune system was fighting a losing battle against the toxin it had never evolved to handle. "You came down here looking for clean air, didn't you?" Amy kept moving, circling slowly to get a better angle. "The air processors down here filter everything. You could smell it, couldn't you? You knew there would be clean air near the machines." The warbeast watched her but didn't move. Its breathing was getting worse, each inhale accompanied by a wet, rattling sound. Fluid in the lungs, Amy thought grimly. The infection was spreading fast. She was close enough now to see the details. The discoloration on the armor wasn't just on the surface. It went deeper, following the lines where the plates overlapped. And at each joint, where the armor couldn't fully protect the softer tissue beneath, there were lesions. Open wounds where the body was literally trying to push the poison out through the skin. "Station security, this is Dr. Foster." Amy kept her voice low, not wanting to startle the creature. "I've located Sovereign. It's not aggressive. It's suffering from acute heavy metal poisoning. Can you sedate it?" The security officer's voice was tight. "We have medical teams standing by." "Sedate it with what?" Amy shot back. "Do you have sedatives rated for Krath physiology? Do you know the proper dosage for a creature this size? Because I don't, and I'm guessing your medical teams don't either." Silence on the comm channel. Amy took another step closer. She was within 5 meters now, close enough that Sovereign could reach her in a single leap if it wanted. But the creature just lay there, its massive chest rising and falling with increasing difficulty. "I need to make a choice," Amy said, more to herself than to the security team. "I need to know if anyone on this station has the capability to treat heavy metal poisoning in a non-standard biology." Negative, Doctor. The station's medical facilities are equipped for standard council species. Earth biology is exotic enough. We have nothing for Krath animals. Amy closed her eyes briefly. Of course not. Why would they? Krath warbeasts were kept in carefully controlled environments. They never got sick. They never needed emergency medical care. Until now. She opened her eyes and looked at Sovereign. The creature was looking back at her with that clouded gaze. And in that moment, Amy saw something she had seen 100 times before in 100 different animals. The look of a creature that knew it was dying and didn't understand why. Then I'm going to have to improvise, Amy said. She pulled her medical kit from her belt and opened it, taking inventory of what she had. Basic diagnostic tools. General-purpose antibiotics. Synthetic tissue bonding gel. Stimulants and depressants designed for human biology. Nothing remotely adequate for what she needed to do. Sovereign made that rumbling sound again, softer this time. Weaker. Amy knelt down slowly, making herself as small and non-threatening as possible. I know this is scary, she said quietly. I know you're in a strange place and everything hurts and you just want to go home. But I need to help you and I need you to let me. The war beast didn't move as Amy crept closer. Its breathing was so labored now that Amy could see its whole body shaking with the effort. She was close enough to touch it, close enough to see her own reflection in its clouded eyes. She reached out slowly, letting her hand hover just above the discolored armor. The heat radiating from the creature's body was intense. Fever, definitely. The infection was running wild through its system. Her communicator crackled again. Dr. Foster, we're detecting increased respiration distress in the creature. Its life signs are becoming critical. I know, Amy whispered. She pressed her hand gently against Sovereign's armor, feeling the heat, feeling the slight tremor that ran through the massive body. The creature flinched but didn't pull away. And that's when Amy made her decision. She activated her communicator and spoke clearly, knowing her words would be broadcast throughout the entire station. This is Dr. Amy Foster to all stations. I have located Ambassador Talmaven's warbeast. It is critically injured and will die without immediate intervention. I need to know right now from the ambassador himself what outcome he wants. She paused, her hand still resting on Sovereign's armor, feeling each labored breath. Do you want it back alive or in pieces? The question echoed through the maintenance tunnels and up through the station's communication systems. In the reception hall above, 200 delegates went silent. In security stations throughout the facility, officers froze at their posts. And in a medical bay where Ambassador Talmaven was being treated for minor injuries from the escape, the Krath warrior felt his heart stop. Because everyone in the galaxy knew what that question really meant. It was the choice between a miracle and a funeral. Between hope and acceptance. Between a human attempting the impossible, or everyone accepting the inevitable. And in the maintenance tunnels, Amy Foster waited for an answer, her hand on a dying creature that cost more than planets, knowing that whatever came next would define not just this moment, but humanity's place among the stars. The silence that followed Amy's question lasted exactly 7 seconds. 7 seconds during which every being on Grand Arena Station held their breath, waiting for Ambassador Talmaven's response. 7 seconds during which Amy kept her hand pressed against Sovereign's burning armor, feeling the warbeast's life slipping away with each labored breath. Then the ambassador's voice came through, cracked and desperate in a way that Krath warriors were never supposed to sound. Alive. Whatever it takes, bring him back alive. Amy nodded, though no one could see her in the dim maintenance tunnel. Understood. I need the medical bay cleared immediately. I need every xenobiological database you have uploaded to my scanner. And I need a cargo transport down here right now. Dr. Foster, the Quilxian security officer interrupted. Our medical staff should handle this. You're not qualified to. Your medical staff has no experience with Krath physiology, Amy cut him off. I don't either. But I've performed emergency surgery on 43 different species back on Earth, including several that no one had ever treated before. I know how to read an animal's body, how to understand what it's trying to tell me. That's going to have to be enough. She heard arguing on the other end of the comm channel, multiple voices overlapping in different languages and translation protocols. But Amy wasn't listening anymore. She was studying Sovereign, cataloging every symptom, every sign of distress. The cargo transport arrived within 3 minutes, piloted by a nervous Quilxian technician who kept all 3 eye stalks focused on the warbeast. How do we move it? The technician asked, his voice shaking. Carefully, Amy replied. She approached Sovereign's head slowly, kneeling down to look into the creature's clouded eyes. I need you to trust me, she said softly. I need you to stay calm. We're going to help you, but you have to let us move you. The warbeast made a low sound, barely audible. Its eyes tracked her movement, but it didn't try to stand or attack. It was too weak for that now. With the technician's help, Amy managed to activate the transport's gravity lifters. The platform slid under Sovereign's massive body, and slowly, carefully, they raised the dying creature off the maintenance tunnel floor. The warbeast trembled but didn't struggle. It simply lay there, breathing in shallow gasps as they guided the transport through the tunnels and up toward the medical level. When they emerged into the main medical bay, Amy found it transformed into something between an operating theater and a command center. Holographic displays covered every wall, showing anatomical diagrams, chemical formulas and real-time data streams. Ambassador Talmaven stood to one side, his armor plates rigid with stress. Around him, gathered both in person and via holographic projection, were representatives from 24 different species. Every major civilization in the Council had sent observers. The entire galaxy is watching, the Quilxian security officer said quietly as Amy passed. Literally. This is being broadcast to every Council world. Amy's hands tightened on her medical kit. Perfect. No pressure at all. They positioned Sovereign on the largest surgical platform, a reinforced table designed for non-humanoid patients. The warbeast's breathing was worse now, each inhale accompanied by a wet gurgling sound. Its body temperature had climbed another degree despite the medical bay's cooling systems. Amy pulled up the xenobiological data on her scanner. The information was sparse. Krath warbeasts were private creatures, their biology closely guarded by the Krath people. What little existed came from centuries-old studies and breeding records. Basic anatomy. Rough chemical compositions. Nothing about surgery. Nothing about treating infections. Nothing remotely adequate for what she needed to do. Time is critical. A holographic physician appeared beside her, a member of the Torvian Medical Guild. The creature's organs are shutting down. Whatever you're going to do, you have minutes, not hours. Amy looked at Sovereign. The discoloration had spread across more of its armor. The lesions at the joints were weeping a clear fluid mixed with blood. And the breathing, the terrible labored breathing, was getting weaker. She thought about her training. Years of veterinary school focused on Earth animals. Then 3 years of xenobiology work, studying alien species through databases and limited specimens. She had never performed surgery on anything like this. No human had. But she had performed surgery on creatures no one else had treated. The snow leopard with the unknown parasite. The dolphin with the mysterious tumor. The eagle with the shattered wing that every expert said should be euthanized. Each time she had used the same approach. Observe. Understand. Adapt. I need to open it up, Amy said aloud. Several of the observers gasped. The infection is spreading from the inside out. If I don't remove the contaminated tissue, the poison will kill it within the hour. You'll kill it yourself, a Draken physician stated flatly. You don't know where to cut. You don't know what organs you might damage. This is madness. Amy turned to face the holographic audience. You're right. I don't know Krath anatomy, but I know biology. I know how bodies work, how they respond to trauma and infection. And I know that doing nothing means watching this creature die for certain. So unless someone else here has a better idea, I'm going to try. No one spoke. Even the Draken physician, known for their aggressive debate style, remained silent. Amy turned back to Sovereign. She pulled out her scanner and set it to deep tissue imaging mode. The device wasn't designed for this, but it was all she had. Slowly, carefully, she moved it across the warbeast's body, building a three-dimensional map of what lay beneath the armor. There. She could see it now. The infection had started in the left lung, where the highest concentration of metal particles had accumulated. From there it had spread to the surrounding tissue, following the creature's circulatory system. Dark patches on her scanner showed where the poison had damaged blood vessels and organs. The left lung has to come out, Amy said quietly. Or at least the damaged portion of it. And I need to flush the circulatory system of any remaining contamination. Krath warbeasts have 3 lungs, Ambassador Talmaven said, his voice steady despite the tremor Amy could hear underneath. The left lung is the smallest. He can survive without it if the surgery is successful. Such a small word carrying so much weight. Amy selected her tools. A plasma scalpel designed for cutting through dense tissue. Synthetic blood vessels for patching damaged arteries. Broad-spectrum antibiotics that she hoped would work across species barriers. Tissue bonding gel. Monitoring patches to track vital signs. It wasn't enough. It wasn't remotely enough. But it would have to do. She placed her hand on Sovereign's head, feeling the heat of the fever through her glove. The warbeast's eye opened slightly, looking at her with what might have been confusion or might have been trust. Amy couldn't tell which. I'm sorry I can't explain this to you, she whispered. I'm sorry this happened. But I'm going to try to fix it. She activated the plasma scalpel. The blade hummed to life, glowing with contained energy. Amy positioned it carefully over the discolored armor plating, right where her scanner showed the worst of the infection. She looked up at the holographic observers one last time, at the Quilxian security officer, at Ambassador Tal Maven with his rigid posture and desperate eyes. Then she looked back down at Sovereign and made the first cut. The armor plate parted under the plasma blade with surprising ease, revealing the damaged tissue beneath. Dark, discolored flesh oozed that same clear fluid Amy had seen at the joints. The smell was sharp and chemical, confirming the heavy metal contamination. Amy's scanner beeped urgently. Sovereign's vital signs were dropping. The stress of the incision was pushing the creature's body toward shutdown. "Stay with me," Amy said, her hands moving faster now. She widened the incision, carefully avoiding what her scanner indicated were major blood vessels. The plasma scalpel was hot enough to cauterize as it cut, which helped control bleeding, but there was still so much blood. Dark purple blood that looked almost black in the medical bay's lights. The Torvian physician's hologram leaned in closer. "You're cutting too deep. You'll hit the secondary heart." "The infection goes that deep," Amy replied, not looking up. "If I don't remove all the contaminated tissue, it will just spread again." Her hands were steady despite the fear coursing through her. This was the moment where everything could go wrong. Where one misplaced cut could sever something vital. Where her guess about Krath anatomy could prove fatally incorrect. She reached the lung tissue. It was worse than the scanner had shown. The entire left lung was dark and swollen, filled with fluid and infection. There was no saving it. She would have to remove the whole thing. "Preparing for organ removal," Amy announced. Her voice echoed across the medical bay and out through the broadcast to dozens of worlds. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were watching a human attempt the impossible. Amy set down the scalpel and picked up a different tool, one designed for cutting through cartilage and bone. She had to disconnect the lung from the main respiratory system without damaging the two healthy lungs that would have to compensate for its loss. Sovereign's body shuddered. The war beast made a sound, barely a whisper of that earlier rumble. Its vital signs were critical now. Heart rates elevated. Blood pressure dropping. Oxygen levels plummeting. "Doctor, the creature is going into shock," the Quilxian security officer warned. "I know," Amy said through gritted teeth. Her hands didn't stop moving. "Cut here. Seal there. Remove the damaged tissue. Work faster. Faster." The infected lung came free with a wet, tearing sound. Amy lifted it carefully, depositing it in a containment field the medical bay had prepared. The organ was twice the size of her head, dark and swollen and completely ruined. Now came the truly delicate part. She had to seal the opening where the lung had been, flush the surrounding tissue with antibiotics, and hope that Sovereign's body could survive on its remaining two lungs while it healed. Amy's hands moved in a blur. Synthetic tissue patches. Bonding gel. Antibiotic irrigation. Her scanner showed her what she couldn't see with her eyes, guiding her hands through tissue and vessels that no human had ever touched before. Time seemed to lose meaning. Amy wasn't sure if she had been working for 10 minutes or 2 hours. There was only the surgery, only Sovereign's laboring breath, only the vital signs that kept threatening to flatline. And then, finally she was done. Amy sealed the armor plate back into place, using the bonding gel to hold it until the creature's natural healing could take over. She stepped back, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading, and looked at the monitors. Sovereign's vital signs were still critical, but they had stabilized. The breathing was still labored but less so. The fever was beginning to drop. The medical bay was completely silent. Every observer, every hologram, every being in the room stood frozen, waiting. And in that silence, Sovereign's eye opened fully for the first time since the surgery began. Clear now, no longer clouded. The war beast looked directly at Amy and made a sound. Soft questioning. "Alive." The first 12 hours after surgery were the most critical. Amy knew this from experience with Earth animals, and she hoped the same principle applied to creatures from across the galaxy. She refused to leave the medical bay, setting up a small chair beside Sovereign's surgical platform where she could monitor every breath, every heartbeat, every sign of improvement or decline. Ambassador Tal Maven hadn't left either. The Krath warrior stood in the corner like a statue, his armor plates locked in a position that Amy had learned indicated extreme stress. Every few minutes, his eyes would flick to the monitors displaying his warbeast's vital signs, then back to Sovereign's massive form. "You should rest," Amy said quietly, not taking her eyes off her patient. "I'll alert you if anything changes." "I will rest when Sovereign is safe," Tal Maven replied. His voice carried a weight that went beyond simple concern for an animal. Amy realized that for the Krath, these creatures were more than pets or property. They were part of their culture, their history, their identity. She turned her attention back to Sovereign. The war beast was breathing more easily now, but the stress of the surgery had taken a terrible toll. Its body temperature was still elevated, though not as dangerously high as before. The surgical site was sealed and showing early signs of healing, but Amy knew infection could still set in at any moment. The problem was the medication. Everything Amy had used during the surgery was designed for Earth biology or adapted for Common Council species. She had no way of knowing if the antibiotics would actually work on Krath physiology, or if they might cause unexpected side effects. Her scanner beeped softly. Amy checked the readout and frowned. Sovereign's stress hormones were climbing. The creature was starting to wake up, and its body was reacting to the pain and confusion of its situation. "Easy," Amy said softly, moving closer to Sovereign's head. "You're safe. You're going to be okay." The war beast's eye cracked open, cloudy with pain and sedation. Its breathing quickened, and the monitors showed heart rates accelerating. If Sovereign panicked and tried to move, it could tear the surgical repairs and bleed out before Amy could stop it. Amy did something she had done 1,000 times with frightened animals back on Earth. She started talking. "I know you're confused," she said, keeping her voice low and calm. "I know everything hurts and you don't understand where you are. But you're safe now. The poison is gone. Your body is healing." She reached out slowly and placed her hand on Sovereign's head, right between the sensory organs. The war beast's eye focused on her, and Amy could see the intelligence behind it. This wasn't a mindless predator. This was a thinking creature trying to understand what had happened to it. "My name is Amy," she continued. "I'm the one who performed the surgery. I know that probably doesn't mean anything to you, but I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know that someone cares about whether you live or die." Sovereign made a sound so soft that Amy almost missed it. A rumble that came from deep in the creature's chest. The stress hormone levels on the monitor began to drop. The heart rate slowed. The war beast was listening to her. Over the next hour, Amy kept up a steady stream of quiet conversation. She talked about Earth, about the animals she had worked with, about the first time she had saved a creature everyone else had given up on. She talked about the snow leopard with the infected wound, about the dolphin with the tumor, about learning to trust her instincts when the textbooks had no answers. And Sovereign listened. The war beast's eye never left her face. Its breathing stayed calm and steady. When Amy needed to check the surgical site or adjust the medication drip, Sovereign remained perfectly still, as if it understood she was trying to help. "This is remarkable," the Torvian physician said. His hologram had reappeared several hours after the surgery, along with a handful of other medical experts from across the council. "The creature should be in severe distress. The pain alone should be triggering violent responses. But it's calm. It knows she saved its life," Ambassador Talmaven said quietly from his corner. "Krath warbeasts are more intelligent than most species realize. They remember kindness." By the 16th hour, Amy's impromptu medical treatment faced its first real crisis. Sovereign's temperature spiked suddenly, climbing 3 degrees in 20 minutes. The surgical site showed signs of inflammation. The antibiotics weren't working as well as Amy had hoped. "We're losing ground," the Quilxian security officer said, his eye stalks drooping with concern. "The infection is coming back." Amy checked her medical supplies. She had used most of the broad-spectrum antibiotics during the surgery. What remained was designed for specific types of bacteria found in council species, none of which matched Krath biology even remotely. Then Amy remembered something from her early training. A lecture on agricultural medicine, back when she was still deciding whether to specialize in exotic animals or livestock. The professor had talked about using livestock medications on wildlife in emergency situations. The dosages were different, the applications were unconventional, but the core chemistry was similar enough to work. "I need access to the station's agricultural supplies," Amy said suddenly. "Specifically, any medications used for treating livestock or food-producing animals." The Draken physician's hologram flickered with what might have been indignation. "You want to treat a priceless war beast with farm animal medicine?" "I want to save its life with whatever works," Amy shot back. "Do you have a better idea?" No one did. Within 30 minutes, a technician arrived with containers of agricultural medications. Amy studied the labels, cross-referencing the chemical compositions with her scanner's database. There, a broad-spectrum antiparasitic used on Quilxian livestock. The active ingredient was similar to a compound found in Earth-based antibiotics. If she could modify the dosage, account for the size difference, adjust for Krath metabolism. "This is insane," the Torvian physician said. "You're guessing." You could kill it. It's dying anyway, Amy replied. She was already calculating dosages, running the numbers through her scanner's medical modeling program. At least this gives it a chance. She prepared the injection carefully, triple-checking her math. The margin for error was terrifyingly small. Too little and the infection would continue spreading. Too much and the medication itself could be toxic. Amy approached Sovereign slowly. The war beast's eye was half closed, dulled by fever and pain. She placed her hand on its head again, feeling the intense heat radiating from its body. I need you to trust me one more time, she whispered. This is going to help, but it might hurt first. Can you be brave for me? Sovereign's eye focused on her face. The creature made that soft rumbling sound again, and Amy chose to interpret it as agreement. She administered the injection into the main circulatory access point she had established during surgery. The medication spread through Sovereign's system within seconds. The war beast's body tensed, muscles bunching under its armor. Its breathing quickened. The monitors showed heart rate spiking. Amy kept her hand on Sovereign's head, kept talking in that same calm, steady voice. I know it hurts. I know your body doesn't understand what's happening. But this is helping. This is making you better. You just have to hold on. 4 or 5 terrible minutes, Sovereign's vital signs fluctuated wildly. Fever climbing higher. Heart rates erratic. Breathing shallow and fast. Every observer in the medical bay held their breath. Ambassador Talmaven's armor plates clicked together, the Krath equivalent of trembling. Then, slowly the fever began to drop. 1 degree. Then another. The heart rate stabilized. The breathing deepened. The inflammation at the surgical site began to recede. It's working, the Quilxian security officer whispered, his eye stalks extended in amazement. Amy sagged with relief but kept her hand on Sovereign's head. You did it, she told the war beast. You fought through it. You're going to be okay. Over the next several hours, Sovereign's condition continued to improve. The fever broke completely. The surgical site showed healthy healing with no signs of infection. The stress hormone levels dropped to normal ranges. The war beast even managed to lift its head slightly, looking around the medical bay with clear, alert eyes. Amy modified a dental tool she had brought from Earth, using it to carefully clean the edges of the armor plates where infection could hide. She applied agricultural wound treatments to the healing tissue, compounds designed for thick-skinned livestock that worked surprisingly well on Krath armor. She monitored and adjusted the medication drip using formulas she had developed on the spot, creating a treatment protocol that had never existed before. And through it all she talked to Sovereign. She explained what she was doing, even though the creature couldn't possibly understand the words. She described how the healing process would work, what sensations to expect when the pain would start to fade. She told stories about other animals she had saved, about the importance of patience during recovery, about how strength wasn't just about fighting but also about enduring. The war beast listened to every word. When Amy had to cause discomfort during treatments, Sovereign would tense but never pulled away. When she applied soothing compounds to irritated tissue, the creature would relax, that soft rumble vibrating through its massive frame. A bond was forming between them, something that transcended species and language. By the 24th hour, Sovereign was strong enough to drink water on its own. Amy had prepared a nutrient solution based on Krath dietary records, modified with supplements from her agricultural supplies. The war beast lapped at it slowly, its movements careful but deliberate. The worst is over, Amy announced to the watching observers. Sovereign is going to survive. The medical bay erupted in sound. Dozens of different species making their various expressions of relief and celebration. Holographic physicians offered congratulations. The Quilxian security officer's eye stalks waved in what Amy had learned was extreme happiness. And Ambassador Talmaven crossed the medical bay with slow, deliberate steps. He stood beside Amy, looking down at his war beast, and when he spoke his voice carried a depth of emotion that translation software could barely convey. You have given me back something irreplaceable, he said. Not just Sovereign but hope. Hope that different species can understand each other. Hope that compassion crosses all boundaries. Amy looked up at the Krath warrior and saw her own exhaustion reflected in his posture. They had both spent 24 hours fighting for the same life, each in their own way. He's not out of danger yet, Amy said. Recovery will take weeks. He'll need careful monitoring, physical therapy to rebuild strength, ongoing treatment to ensure the infection doesn't return. Then you will provide that treatment? Talmaven said simply. It wasn't a question. Amy looked at Sovereign, at the warbeast's clear eyes watching her with what she could swear was gratitude, and she nodded. Yes, I will. 3 days after the surgery, Amy moved Sovereign to a recovery habitat specially constructed on the station's agricultural level. The space was large enough for the warbeast to stand and move around, with environmental controls adjusted to match Krath homeworld conditions. Soft lighting, elevated temperature, and air filtration that removed every trace of the metals that had nearly killed him. Amy set up a small living space in the corner of the habitat. A cot, a portable workstation, and her medical supplies. She had no intention of leaving Sovereign alone during the critical recovery period. The Quilxian security officer had tried to convince her to let trained handlers take over, but Amy had refused. He trusts me, she had said simply. Breaking that trust now could set back his recovery by weeks. So she moved into the habitat, and Sovereign watched her with those intelligent crystalline eyes as she arranged her belongings. The warbeast was strong enough now to stand for short periods, though the effort clearly exhausted him. His left side, where the lung had been removed, was still tender and healing. But the fever was gone, the infection defeated, and every day brought visible improvement. On the first morning in the new habitat, Amy woke to find Sovereign standing over her cot. Her heart jumped for a moment, ancient instincts screaming about predators and danger. But the warbeast just looked at her, head tilted slightly, making that soft rumbling sound she had come to recognize as contentment. "Good morning to you too," Amy said, sitting up slowly. "How are you feeling?" Sovereign backed away to give her space, moving carefully to protect his injured side. Amy ran a scan and checked the surgical site. Everything looked good. Better than good, actually. The healing was progressing faster than she had hoped. "Let's try something," Amy said. She opened a container of nutrient paste, the Krath equivalent of food, and placed a small amount on her hand. Then she held her hand out flat, the way she would offer treats to horses back on Earth. "Come here. Come get it." Sovereign hesitated. His eyes moved from Amy's face to her hand and back again. Then, slowly, carefully, he lowered his massive head and ate the paste from her palm. His tongue was rough and warm, nothing like Earth animals but somehow familiar anyway. "Good," Amy said softly. "That's very good. You're learning to trust again." Over the next 3 days, Amy introduced a structured recovery program. Physical therapy to rebuild strength in Sovereign's damaged side. Enrichment activities to keep his mind engaged. Gradual increases in food portions as his appetite returned. And always, constant gentle interaction to maintain the bond they had formed. But Amy also did something that no one expected. She started teaching Sovereign to respond to basic commands. "The Krath don't train their warbeasts," Ambassador Talmaven said when he visited on the second day. "They are partners, not servants. We keep them for their strength and beauty, not to command them." "I'm not training him to obey," Amy explained. She was sitting cross-legged in front of Sovereign, holding a small device that made different sounds. "I'm teaching him to communicate. Watch." She pressed a button that made a low tone. "This sound means food is coming. Sovereign, listen." She played the tone again, then offered a portion of nutrient paste. After several repetitions, Sovereign began moving toward her whenever he heard that specific tone. "Now this one," Amy said, pressing a different button that made a higher pitch. "This means it's time for medical checkup. He won't like this one at first, but he'll learn it means temporary discomfort followed by feeling better." She played the high tone, then approached Sovereign with her scanner. The warbeast tensed but didn't move away. Amy conducted a quick examination, then offered praise and a treat. Sovereign's rumble deepened with satisfaction. "You're teaching him that medical care isn't punishment," Talmaven said slowly. Understanding dawned in his voice. "You're showing him that temporary pain can lead to healing." "Exactly," Amy replied. "And more than that, I'm giving him a way to tell us what he needs. If he associates certain sounds with certain outcomes, he can start to request them. If he's hungry, he can indicate the food area. If he's in pain, he can show us where. It's not obedience. It's conversation." By the third day, news of Amy's methods had spread throughout the council. Xenobiologists and animal handlers from a dozen species requested permission to observe. The recovery habitat's observation deck was filled with watchers as Amy put Sovereign through his daily routine. "Sovereign, come," Amy said, using a hand gesture she had introduced the day before. The warbeast rose from his resting spot and walked over to her, moving smoothly despite the missing lung. His gait was almost normal now, the limp from protecting his injured side nearly gone. "Good. Now show me where it hurts." Amy had been working on this command for 2 days. She touched different parts of Sovereign's body, and if an area was tender, she had been teaching him to lean into her touch. If it felt fine, he would remain still. She touched his right flank. Sovereign stood still. She touched his head. So. She touched his left side, near the surgical site. Sovereign leaned gently into her hand, indicating discomfort but not severe pain. "Thank you for telling me," Amy said. She applied a soothing gel to the area, and Sovereign's rumble indicated relief. The observers on the deck were silent. Then a Draken xenobiologist, the same one who had called Amy's surgery insane, spoke through the comm system. "This changes everything," the Draken said. "For 10,000 years, the Krath have kept these creatures in isolation, treating them as living treasures to be protected but never understood. And in 3 days, a human has taught one to communicate its needs. It's not just about Sovereign," another voice added. Amy recognized the Torvian physician who had monitored the surgery. "This approach could revolutionize how we interact with all nonverbal species across the Council. The implications are staggering." Amy didn't respond to the observers. She was focused on Sovereign, on the way his eyes followed her movements, on the trust that had developed between them. She thought about all the animals she had worked with on Earth. The ones that had been labeled as aggressive or untrainable or dangerous. Almost always the problem wasn't the animal. It was that no one had taken the time to understand what the animal was trying to communicate. That evening, Ambassador Talmaven entered the habitat personally, something he had been reluctant to do since Sovereign's escape. The warbeast's eyes tracked him immediately, and Amy felt Sovereign tense beside her. "Easy," Amy said softly. "That's your person. Remember? He's the one who wanted you back alive." Talmaven approached slowly, moving in a way that Amy realized was submissive in Krath body language. He was making himself smaller, less threatening. When he reached Sovereign, he placed his hand on the warbeast's head, exactly where Amy always did. "I have kept your kind for my entire life," Talmaven said quietly. 30 breeding seasons. Hundreds of offspring. And I never once thought to ask what you needed. I only thought about what I wanted from you." Sovereign made a sound, different from his usual rumble. It was higher, more complex. Amy's scanner showed emotional markers spiking, not in stress but in something else. Recognition maybe. Or forgiveness. "I spoke with the Council this morning," Talmaven said, turning to Amy. "They want to offer you a position. Director of Xenobiological Relations. You would work directly with the Council to develop new protocols for understanding and communicating with nonverbal species across all member worlds." Amy blinked. "I've been in space for less than 2 years. I've only worked with one alien species." "You've done in 3 days what our best xenobiologists haven't accomplished in centuries," Talmaven replied. "You looked at Sovereign and saw a person, not a possession. You treated him with dignity even when his life was worthless by any practical measure. That perspective is what the Council needs." Amy looked at Sovereign. The warbeast was watching her with those clear, intelligent eyes. In 3 days he had gone from a dying creature to a healthy one. From a terrified animal to a trusting companion. Not because Amy had superior technology or ancient knowledge, but because she had taken the time to listen. "I'll accept on one condition," Amy said. "Sovereign comes with me. He's not fully recovered, and I want to continue his rehabilitation personally." "Of course," Talmaven said without hesitation. "Though I suspect his rehabilitation ended yesterday. What you're doing now is building something new. A partnership based on understanding rather than ownership." Over the following weeks, Amy's work became the foundation for a revolution in xenobiology. Her protocols for building trust, teaching communication, and treating animals as individuals rather than property spread to breeding facilities and research stations across Council space. The Krath were the first to adopt her methods, but dozens of other species followed. Sovereign became something of a celebrity. The warbeast who had nearly died and had been saved by human compassion. Holographic documentaries showed his recovery, his training, the bond he had formed with Amy. Children across the galaxy learned his story in their schools. But for Amy, the most meaningful moment came 6 weeks after the surgery. She was working in her new office aboard Grand Arena Station when Sovereign, who had the freedom to come and go from his habitat as he pleased, walked in and lay down beside her desk. He made his contented rumble, the sound that Amy had come to love, and rested his massive head on his paws. "Just wanted company?" Amy asked, reaching down to scratch behind his sensory organs. Sovereign's eyes closed in pleasure. The Quilxian security officer, who had stopped by to deliver reports, watched the scene with all 3 eye stalks. A year ago, if you had told me a human and a Krath warbeast would be working together in a council office, I would have said you were delusional. A year ago, I was treating injured raccoons in a wildlife center in Colorado, Amy replied with a smile. Life takes you to unexpected places. The council made the right choice, the officer said. Your approach, treating every creature with dignity and compassion regardless of its value or status, that's something the galaxy needed. We had become too focused on what we could take from other species. We forgot to ask what they might freely give if we simply treated them with respect. After the officer left, Amy sat in comfortable silence with Sovereign. Through the office window, she could see Grand Arena Station's dome and the stars beyond. Somewhere out there were thousands of species, millions of individual creatures, all with their own needs and wants and ways of communicating. And Amy had just begun to learn their languages. Sovereign rumbled softly, a sound that needed no translation. It meant contentment. It meant trust. It meant friendship. And in the end, Amy thought that was what mattered most. Not the technology or the treaties or the vast distances between worlds, but the simple act of one being recognizing the personhood of another and choosing compassion over convenience. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or engines or clever inventions, but the fundamental belief that every life, regardless of form or origin, deserved to be treated with kindness. And in that moment, with Sovereign's gentle breathing and the stars shining overhead, Amy Foster understood exactly why the Galactic Council had chosen a human for this role. Because sometimes, the newest voice in the conversation was the one that reminded everyone else of the truths they had forgotten.